I've sent over 1 million cold emails, and as a result, generated over $2 million from cold emails for my clients in the last 2 years alone. But before I helped them, those clients tried cold email on their own and completely failed. The reason? They made the same exact mistakes that over 99% of beginners do when they first start cold email. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what those mistakes are and how to avoid them so you can go straight to getting results. So whether you're an agency owner, a SaaS founder, or just somebody interested in making more sales through a cold email, stick with me so that you don't waste time and money on these very easily avoidable mistakes like everybody else. All right, so the first mistake is probably the most common mistake, yet it's the one that can be the most expensive for you. It's so common that even some large companies still do it and then wonder why their sales outreach isn't really working. Now, most companies do this. They just send cold emails from their main domain. Now, this is a very bad idea because Google and Microsoft are extremely sensitive to cold email. And since you're reaching out to cold leads, a lot of these prospects are actually going to hit spam on your emails. And if that happens too much, your whole domain reputation can get a hit. So for example, let's say your sales proposals, your emails to partners, and then your emails to customers are now going to spam because your domain is blacklisted. That is not good. Instead, what you should do is isolate your cold outreach on dedicated domains. That way, if something does go wrong, which a lot of the times it does with cold email, you lose a secondary domain that you can easily replace for, $10, and your main business operations are not actually affected at all. To do this, let's say, for example, your main domain, your company domain is company.com. You would buy secondary domains like getcompany.com, trycompany.com, etc. What I use is Cloudflare and Porkbun, and then also you need to set up SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Those are very important settings for email deliverability. I'll ask my team to put a resource in the description below on how to actually set those up. How many domains you need depends entirely on how much volume you plan on actually wanting to send. There's no golden number. As a rule of thumb though, I recommend sending anywhere between 20 and 40 cold emails a day per domain, so just plan accordingly. Now we have all of those secondary domains, but we still don't want to burn their domain reputation. Otherwise, we're going to end up in spam like everybody else and not generate any results. This second mistake is the most common way that people destroy their domains without ever realizing it. Most people's cold outreach story goes like this. They first buy a list, then they start blasting out cold emails, and then unfortunately, they don't see any replies. Their next step is usually to post cold email is dead on LinkedIn. Now, what kills them silently is their bounce rate, making them land in spam, and then of course, their emails, they're completely invisible. And the sad truth of the market right now is that most of the data providers, including the biggest providers in the space that we all know, they don't really provide good emails to their customers, which means that most people send to completely outdated and invalid emails. And that completely kills their email reputation. Apollo.io, for example, they say an acceptable bounce rate is around 10%, when in reality, it should always be less than 5%, even closer to 2% in most cases. So you absolutely need to verify your emails just to make sure that that they're up to date and valid before you ever start sending a cold email to your lead list. I've tested a bunch of tools and found that FindEmail and their verifier has been one of the, if not the most consistent tool to actually keep my deliverability clean. I've been using them for the past 3 years and my bounce rate has always been under 3%. All you have to do is sign up to findemail.com and then upload your lead list to their email verifier section. Okay, so if you've avoided those first two mistakes, you can at least land safely in the inbox and are already ahead of most cold emailers. But it does not end there, because if your emails are shit, people will just ignore them and you're never going to actually close any deals from cold email. Among all possible mistakes that you could make, the following two are the most common and the most deadliest to your conversion rate. Now, most cold emails look like this. They're super long. They only talk about themselves. It's always me. Here's my product. Here's what I can offer you. And then they're saying, hey, please book a call. The result? Nobody cares. The goal of any good cold email is to get read, be relevant, and trigger a reply that could potentially start a sales conversation. So step number one, to actually get read, you need to send very short cold emails that are straight to the point and make sure that you are being human. Step number 2, to actually be relevant, you need to target the right people and try to talk less about your solution, your product, your features, and talk more about their pain points and the problems that you're solving. And then as a bonus, have a contextual trigger that makes you outreaching to them more relevant. And always have one clear call to action, like asking a very simple question that they can easily answer to. Or if your call to action is able to be answered by either a yes or a no, that's even better. You'll be doing all the thinking for them. And then of course, be conversational. Don't be casual to the point of being disrespectful to them, but you need to remember that cold emails are often way too formal. So write like a human. If you fixed all of these, by now you should be getting replies to your cold emails. But there's one more mistake that will make the difference between getting ghosted and actually converting those replies into meetings. Now, your prospects don't just sit in their inbox and are patiently waiting until they can start receiving cold emails like yours. They're busy. So when they actually reply to your cold email, that means you have them hooked, at least for a while. But if you have a fish on the line and you don't act quickly enough, it will eventually manage to shake off the hook and escape. It is exactly the same with cold email. So when you get a reply, you need to capitalize on that interest as soon as possible. If you don't, you're at risk of losing that lead forever. I always like to say, the faster you can reply to leads, the more meetings you're going to book. I would recommend utilizing any sort of automations and real-time notifications of your cold email sequencer for very fast replies, speed to lead. If you followed me this far, you now have all the ingredients for a very successful cold email campaign. The game is now to test many things, scale the winners and cut the losers. But when doing that, there's one more mistake that every beginner makes, and it's not even your fault. You're just getting trapped by the cold email platforms themselves. And I'm talking about open rates. Open rates are probably one of the least important and least reliable metrics in cold email. Why? Because open tracking is, based on a tiny invisible image, a 1x1 pixel. The bad part is that when it actually loads in an inbox, it counts as an open. Now your Gmail, your Outlook, your Zohos, and other email service providers have caught on to this. And what's even worse, open tracking can actually hurt your deliverability, guys, since images often raise spam flags. That's why I would just recommend disabling open tracking altogether. Instead, just track what matters: reply rate and positive reply rate. With your reply rates, I would always aim for at least 2%. And then with your positive reply rates, always aim for at least 0.1% before actually saying, hey, let's scale our cold email. Fixing these mistakes will already get you ahead of 99% of cold emailers. But there are still a few more things that you need to learn if you're really serious about generating sales through cold emails. So click on this video where I'll go into more details on exactly how I would learn cold emails again if I had to start from scratch. A few things like how I would build an offer tailored for cold email, how to learn cold email copywriting, and what cold email tech stack the top experts in the space are using right now. And like I said, if you're genuinely serious about improving your cold email game, click on this video right here on your screen, and I'll see you in the next one.